Welcome back to the Other Side Lifestyle Podcast with Jim and Aram. Today, we're going to talk about online gurus who try to sell you their services, and the best way to respond is with a dick pic.
Yep.
I guess that's the whole thing. We just solved everybody's problem.
Yeah, just respond. Anytime, if you're a woman getting harassed by a man, send a dick pic. If you're getting harassed by solicitors, send a dick pic.
Yeah.
If you get somebody at your door that you don't like, place a dick pic on the door. I think dick pics solve most problems.
Yeah, Ken Jong, hangover dick pic.
I think it's a winning strategy.
Just
I see no flaws here.
No. It's beautiful. We're also going to talk about what chaps people's asses. We're going to talk about if you're in an environment with a lot of drugs, you should just do them.
Yeah, absolutely.
Beautiful thing.
Yep. The more availability of stuff you have around you, the more of it you should consume.
Yes.
Logically.
Absolutely. Ron, why don't you introduce our guest that you brought him on?
Yep. So Daniel and I met at the Raise the Bar event, which I was encouraged to go to by our friend Andrew Coates, who will be a lifelong confidant of ours and the mayor of the industry. So we just got to talking. We hit it off. We were laughing. We were chatting. It was nice to be in that environment of people where it was kind of like bullshit free, ego free. And that was one thing I really liked about Daniel, is that he's doing a lot of good things. He's doing it in a place that's very difficult to do it in right now, because the access in Canada is you guys had a bit of a tough time during COVID with everything being shut down for a lot longer. So I think the challenges that you were going through were pretty massive, and the fact that you were able to adapt and kind of thrive in your environment says a lot about you as a person. So I wanted to have you on to share your thoughts about our very often shitty industry, but we're trying to make it better. So Daniel, tell us about who you are, what you do as a coach, and some of the types of people you help.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. And likewise with the meeting at the Raise the Bar and just the way that we hung out, I think a good way even to sum that up, like that meeting, I remember we walked into that bowling football thing that we did. And I remember that this stuck out at me so much. The guy at the front, he was like, "Oh, you three," it was like me, you, and Jeb. Mm-hmm. And the guy at the front desk, he's like, "Oh, everyone from the event like has this such good energy." And I'm like, I'm not sure what that means. Maybe we're all in shape. Maybe it's like three dudes with no hair walking in together. Like, I don't know what it is, but like, all right, we'll take that. But anyways, yeah, I'm from Toronto, or just outside of Toronto. We did have like a huge shitstorm during COVID, and like I don't think we've gone through or we've really experienced all of the lasting effects of that. But we deal with what we can, and we work with the environment that we're given, which I think is going to be a big topic today. So I coach general population clients, a handful of athletes here and there. I have a background in playing soccer. I played at a decently high level, and so I have a lot of contacts within like the local community and youth and stuff that I train. But for the most part, it's regular people just looking to lose weight and get healthy and get strong and really get their life back. I also had a huge injury issue growing up. Like I had a lot of knee injuries and stuff playing soccer. And so through that, to make a very long story very short, through that, there was a really big surgery that I went through, and I was like unable to walk or even put any weight on one of my legs for 13 weeks. And so I, lost my ability to move for a period of time. And so even though I'm young and people hear me talk about like, you've got to move now so that you can, take a shit when you're 90 by yourself. And they're like, well, what do you like? You're young. What are you talking about? It's like, well, yes, I am, but I've had my movement taken away from me, and I don't want that to happen to anyone else. And so I come at fitness from that perspective of like, yeah, it's cool to like be jacked and shredded and like that stuff is all cool, but like I want you to just be able to live your life. So let's do what we can in the gym to let the rest of your life be as good as it can be.
Yeah, the gym should enhance your life, not be your life.
Yeah, exactly.
No,
exactly.
And
it should be a positive force.
What we were kind of talking about before we started was this idea that oftentimes in this very negative environment that a lot of us live in, whether it's highly palatable foods, whether it's being invited to constant parties that we're having to navigate around, whether it's other social events, obligations, a lot of times it's hard for the Gen Pop people that we work with, and it's probably even just as difficult for ourselves to moderate our decision making under these types of circumstances. So let's have a very, very descriptive discussion about that, because I think most of our clients are probably doing pretty well Monday through Thursday. And then I think it's the weekends or the events or the environments in which they're in that start to make the wheels fall off. So what are some of the things that you're seeing as far as challenges that clients have surrounding these types of environments, and how can we control those environments better?
I think that one way, or like a term that I've heard that is a good one to sum this up, is fit shaming. And what that could mean is like when you go out, to a dinner or whatever, and you order steak and salad instead of like fries and a burger, everyone's like, "Oh, what's going on with you? Like, why are you on a diet?" And I think that that's very strange that living a quote unquote healthy lifestyle is even a term that exists. Like, it should just be a lifestyle and then a not healthy lifestyle. Like, why are we differentiating between what we're supposed to be doing? So I think a lot of it is just social pressure as to like what's accepted as normal. You should be, have a few drinks, live a little, like, order the fries, double up the order of this, put extra sauce on that. Like, and this has just become so normal. And there's only so many times that you can say no to it. And you want to say to your friends, "Oh, I'm just trying to be healthy." And you feel weird and you feel awkward. You're ordering soda water when everyone else is drinking beers. And it doesn't mean that you have to be so restrictive with your life, but like, if you have goals, there's going to be some sacrifices, right? If you keep doing what you've always been doing, you're going to continue to get what you've always got. And if you're pursuing this avenue of fitness, then conceivably you want something to change. So something's got to change about what it is that you're doing. So I think one of the biggest challenges is really just the people that you're surrounding yourself with, and that not enough people collectively are even have fitness on their brain at all. Sometimes I think that's hard for us to remember because it's what we talk about and deal with all day long. And so, you go out and talk to maybe some friends you haven't seen in a while, and like, oh yeah, they haven't even considered what a healthy meal might be, or going to the gym in years. And so that's what most people are thinking about. And so it's very difficult to try and do your thing and make your changes and change who you are as a person fundamentally in an environment that is not necessarily supporting that. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it, or that you shouldn't push back against the grain, so to speak, and do it. Because again, if you don't, then you're just going to stay the way you are, and conceivably you don't want that. So
yeah, if you started to try to make a change, it's obviously because you wanted to make a change. I talked about that before, where it's like, if you find yourself continually trying and failing and trying and failing, it means that you really do want it. You just might not have figured out what you got to do, or how bad you really want it, or what you're really willing to sacrifice to get to that goal. And I try to make it a point, and even the way you phrase that, people need to stop saying, "I'm trying to be good," or "I'm trying to eat healthy." You are absolutely inviting people to pressure you. Yeah. Like, what if you just said, "I don't feel like it. Yeah. I want a fucking chicken salad. Yeah. I don't feel like being bloated and shitting my pants and running to the bathroom. I just don't feel like it." Why? What's wrong? Nothing's wrong. Nothing. That's why I don't feel like it. What's wrong with you? Yeah.
I posted, I wear like the wings. Yeah. I wear the Aura ring. And so, every once in a while I'll post like the readiness scores and whatever. And like, I sleep pretty good, but obviously like I take care of myself and I prioritize these things. And the other day it was like, pretty high scores, but again, it's normal for me. A guy who I know messaged me. I got several messages, but a guy who I know messaged me, and he said, "Well, how do you get such high scores? I can't get out of the 70s."
How come I can already see this conversation, how it's going to go?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm sure you could finish it. He sent me like a screenshot of his thing. I'm like, "Well, you went to bed at 12, 15. I said, "I go to bed at 10 p.m. And he's like,
"I can't do that.
I feel pretty good at 75. So I'm like, "Well, okay, then I can't help you. Like, what do you want me to do? Like, you're going to bed late and then complaining why you're tired." So it's not like you don't know. There's not a lack of knowledge here. It's just like you don't want to do it. So if you don't want to change, then don't complain about not feeling good, right?
It always cracks me up. I think Aram, I might have said it on here before, maybe Aram heard me say, I had this woman ask me how I got my son out of swimmies before he was 3 years old. Like, how'd you get him swimming? Their kids are, older and still
they're 30. They're 30 and they still are in swimmies.
It was actually Aram's parents.
I'm a person. I really can't fucking swim, so he's not lying.
And I explain how. And it's not going to be something fun. You're borderline drowning your kid. I mean, it's fun for me, right? It's not fun for the kid. And I couldn't do that. I was like, don't ask. Like, what answer did you think was going to be this fun, friendly, easy thing? If it was, everybody would be doing it.
That brings up a good point. I think a lot of people, like, they ask questions not looking for an answer, but just looking for you to confirm whatever they're already thinking.
Yeah.
And so they just want you to say what they want to hear. And it's like, but if you already knew that and it's not working, why would you think that that's the right answer? It's a broken logic that really makes no sense to me. And I don't think it's that difficult to comprehend this.
I've gotten to a point now where I just don't have these conversations socially anymore because I'm probably trying to unwind and I don't want to fucking talk about fitness and nutrition for a couple hours. I'm probably doing all the same stupid shit that all my friends are doing. So I'd rather just be a part of it. So like, don't like, the worst time to ask me for my coaching advice is when I'm sitting next to you drinking and doing drugs with you.
Yeah.
Like, why would you ask me about my opinion on like how do I get this off? I'm like, just pass the bag and shut the fuck up. Like, nobody cares about how fat you are.
See how I meet up with you every few months, but you guys do it every weekend?
Correct. That's exactly.
Keep doing what you're doing, but don't do this so much.
Right. And that's what I tell them. I'm like, you guys are doing this every single weekend. You're doing this 4 to 5 times a month. And think about that. Like, everybody thinks like the weekend shenanigans are like this benign problem that like there's no way that I could unravel 4 days of good behavior in 2 days. I'm like,
the fucking third of your month.
Think about it. 28% of your month is spent treating yourself like a fucking amusement park.
Yeah, let's add Friday night.
Exactly. Well, that's and I consider 20. When I did that calculation, I take the Fridays into account because most people don't just start. It's not like a Saturday morning. I'm waiting for it to like 7 a.m. I'm ready to eat pancakes. No, that shit starts on Friday night because what happens? Most people are being good Monday through Thursday. The stress builds up. The week builds up. All of their, it's like this. Exactly. It's this like sigh of relief. And then it's like, how poorly can I treat myself for the next 3 days? And I'm sure that's not what people are actually thinking. Like at the end of the day, I want to give people the benefit of the doubt to at least give them that lens that they're not trying to fuck themselves up, but they're also doing very little to prepare themselves mentally and physically for the weekend. Like if you're not prepped, if like I had this conversation on I got invited to speak to a group yesterday and they're like, well, what are your best tips for the weekend? I'm like, just treat the weekend like it's a weekday.
Yeah. People are spending all week between work, family, food, exercise, thinking a lot. And the weekend, they just don't want to think. And so with that being said, what would you say, Dan, do you go by Dan or Daniel? Do you always go by Daniel?
Usually Daniel.
Daniel.
But I'm not opposed to Dan, whatever.
You
it's all
can call
good.
me James. What would you say? Like, so we know that this is the problem. There's too much thinking, potentially wanting to unwind and all that. What kind of strategies do you have for people to navigate the weekend? Something where it's like much lower than maybe during the week, but some basic principles.
I would actually go the other way in that there's not enough thinking happening. There's a lot of thinking without any, maybe there's no thinking. There's a lot of thinking without any analysis. Maybe that's where I'm going with that. So people are just going through life unconsciously. Oh, I've got to get to the next meal, got to get to the next thing on the to-do list, next thing on my calendar. And they're not really aware of what's going on. And so when Monday rolls around and the scale's all the way back up and they're like, well, what the fuck happened? Well, if you just looked at what you did, just keeping a food log, keeping a basic like activity log, the most bare bones, simplest things, then you realize like, all right, well, yeah, on Friday, I ate like an asshole. On Saturday, I did this. On Sunday, I did this. And it's like, well, no wonder the scale went up. And so I actually think, shutting your brain off is not really a good thing. And I mean, this is like, we can go down a very deep rabbit hole of like things with COVID and just like blindly just doing stuff and like not paying attention to like your life and your surroundings around you.
What are you possibly implying?
I mean,
such an aggressive statement. This seems...
Well, seeing as the internet in Canada is censored now. I mean,
is it really?
Yeah, but
no porn.
No, it just means that you have to say things that Justin likes. Otherwise, you just, get canceled more or less. But anyways.
Well, at least you guys still have porn, but that porn in Canada's it's gotta be so boring in Canada. It's like the friendly porn where they don't actually fuck or like eat each other.
Yeah, I heard it's clothes on. It's clothes on only.
Yeah,
now.
they just they poke it through the hole.
It's like all consensual or something.
Yeah.
Oh, that was dark.
The
anyway.
This is why I lean into the German porn better. They hate each other, and it always makes me feel like I'm still in Nazi Germany when they're yelling at me like that.
A little anger can do you some good, right? A little stress relief in another way too, right?
Absolutely. And
But
these are the types of tangents you can expect with us, Dan.
yeah, no, I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'm all for it.
so if you can remember what you were saying.
Yeah, it's just this unconscious going through all of life, and people are
Yeah.
just doing stuff for the sake of doing stuff because it's the next thing, because it's what I'm supposed to do, because I'm supposed to get a job, I'm supposed to, do all this thing. The hardcore entrepreneurs like, oh, fuck school, like you don't have to go to school and get a job and then get married and then buy a house. Like maybe you do, maybe you don't, but like you don't necessarily need to just go through life without thinking about what you're doing on not even that deep of a level. You don't need to sit in a mountain and like, meditate kumbaya, but like you should have some awareness of what it is that's what you're actually doing, and then compare that to what you think you're doing. And often there's like a pretty big disconnect there.
Have you ever seen the movie Whiplash?
I have not.
The movie, have you seen it, Jim? With the kid that goes to school to drum to become he goes to like a music school in New York City to
The
drum.
dude
And J.K. Rowlings is the
yeah. What's the
Miles
kid's name?
Teller?
Miles Teller. Yeah, from Maverick.
So towards the end of the movie, they're sitting and having a drink together after a whole bunch of shit transpired. So if you haven't seen the movie Whiplash, watch it. It's fantastic. But the guy says to Miles, he goes, there's two words in the English language that are the most detrimental words to anybody that they'll ever hear. He goes, those two words are good job, because it makes you think that you're actually doing a good job. I actually think that the most detrimental words in the English language are, I don't want to have to think about it. That there's nothing that irks me and pisses me off deep to my core more than when I hear clients tell me, I just don't want to have to think about it. I said, how far has that strategy gotten you in life? Do you think about your children? I would imagine you do. Do you think about work? Probably way fucking too much. Do you think about all the responsibilities you have? Yeah, every goddamn minute of every day. So why wouldn't you add something like eating well and moving your body and hydrating and sleeping well to those lists? Because I would imagine that you'd probably get better at all the other stuff anyway when that stuff gets taken care of. But people don't want to think about it because they want all of that. I want to go to Orange Theory because I don't want to have to worry about my workout plan and just have somebody tell me what to do. I want you to give me a meal plan because I don't want to have to think about putting food together. How long will that last? And do you want to always be constantly reliant on stuff that doesn't allow you to be autonomous?
And even imagine having a job where all your entire career, the only thing you did was what people told you to do. It's not
I left that.
All right, clean the bathrooms. Like that's not enough instruction.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like that's what the meal plan is. Okay, so when you clean I need you to clean the toilets. Okay, now what? Now go clean the sinks. Okay, now what? Now go clean the walls. Okay, now what? Now go clean the floors.
Yeah.
Like that would be absolutely
sounds like a horrible life.
Yeah,
right. But that's what people are expecting when it comes to, I think that's what they're expecting when they hire a coach. Whereas at the end of the day, like I had the best thing happen to me in the world today. I had a client after about 1.5 years, 2 years leave me today because he's like, hey, I feel really good and I want to go off on my own and do this on my own. I've learned a lot. I feel great. I can practice this on my own. You've been a great help to me and I'll tell everybody about you. That's exactly where I want you to be. If I have you as a client for life because you haven't learned anything, if you keep me as an accountability partner, cool. But if you were literally just spinning your wheels constantly week over week and just nothing's changing, where's the disconnect? And speak up about it. Like if there's something that you don't understand, whether it's about food, it's about fitness, it's about like, 'cause there's a lot of nuance to this stuff. Like you said, we talk about this shit, live and breathe it every single day to the point where it's just automatic. Like time under tension, periodization, all these terms are just for other people. It's like if you walked into a nuclear missile silo, you wouldn't know what the fuck was going on in there. You'd be completely lost. And you might because you're Canadian. You guys are doing all sorts of weird shit up there. But like, how do we get people out of this idea that they have to be on autopilot all the time and take some responsibility for their actions? And what's that conversation look like?
So for me, the process just looks like having people like literally write down what they're doing. And that starts with food and then it goes into activity. And then I tried my best to highlight the connections between the things that they're doing. So a perfect example of it is this. A recent client who just started, she's got her diet's not great. There's some mental health and some eating disorder history and stuff there, some injury history and a lot of things going on. But the only nutrition thing we've done. So the first thing I asked her was like, just, track your food for a week. Like, don't weigh stuff. Like, I don't care about the calories. Just like write down what you're eating. If you had one bowl of something like that is a close enough measurement for the purposes here.
For now. Yeah.
For now. And then, so she wrote down everything that she was doing. And the only thing that I changed, I said, forget food quality and choices and things. She was having coffee every day at like 9 p.m. And then her breakfast was like either non-existent or just like Pop-Tarts or something like that. And I said, okay, we're making 2 changes. No coffee after 4 p.m. and eat breakfast every day. I don't care what it is, but eat breakfast every day. And what that ended up doing was she was able to get to bed earlier, wake up on time to make a decent breakfast. Having a half decent breakfast that wasn't like a Pop-Tart on the go made her not, ravenous and reaching for snacks and junk food at lunch. And then so she had a proper lunch, and then she's not snacking again through the day, had a proper dinner, is tired at her normal time, and then like goes to bed at a regular time the night before or the next night rather. So all we really changed was like, don't drink coffee too late and eat something for breakfast. And, within a week, she was down like 6 or 7 pounds. And if I was
monumental changes.
Yeah. It's like, if I was a huge douchebag, bigger than I am, I would go and sell a program about like, oh, look at my secret sauce to lose 7 pounds in a week. And like, all we did was really just make these 2 little changes. But what I did then after that was like, hey, it's not that you stop drinking coffee. Like, it's not, coffee wasn't the thing that was making you gain weight or not able to lose weight. It's the cascade of events that happened from drinking coffee too late in the day. And so she's like, oh wow, I didn't realize that. And okay, she didn't realize that. That's what we're here for, right? That's what we do. And so making these changes and then just helping them see what they might not be seeing, and then understanding, well, why did this thing that we changed work? I didn't give you some magic pill. I didn't I wasn't there slapping cookies out of your hand. We just made this little change and it worked. Why did it work? And then that starts to kind of open people's eyes. Like, oh, well, maybe I can change this too. Or I do this thing that I didn't even tell you about because I didn't think it was relevant or whatever. So it's just, again, like drawing their awareness to the things that are actually happening to them that they might not notice, because we as coaches have our coach's eye to notice these things, to point them out to people.
It's so wild. You said awareness. As you were telling that story about her, I'm just sitting there thinking how wild it is, the lack of awareness that people have about something so basic as, oh, drinking coffee at 9 o'clock at night is a problem.
It's very Parisian.
Like, oh, I didn't even think about that. Like, but that's where we're at. And that's kind of what we were talking about before getting on about just, it seems like there's this lack of awareness about how horrible the food environment is. And we have to then take responsibility for that. I know that was something that you were saying is kind of bugging you in this culture right now. It's like, well, it's the food's fault, big food, big pharma, all that stuff. What's our responsibility in this?
Yeah, I think that we each have to just like figure it out for ourselves, because, Big Brother is not helping you. They're not doing anything to change it. And like we were saying before, if any of us have a magic button to like press and change the entire socioeconomic status of North America, then do so, please.
Yeah, well,
but
if everybody got
vaccinated,
exists. We'd be fine.
Yeah, that's really the secret. Yeah, but no one's forcing you to. But just if everyone could do that, please.
I'm 6 times vaccinated.
Yeah, it doesn't. Anal does not count. I had to tell him this like 7 times. He keeps having guys inject them, and he thinks that's the vaccine.
They were vaccinated.
It's like that counts then.
It does spread. Yes,
that's why you have 6, because it's like a half-life.
Yeah. But I make sure I have to get a dose once every 2 weeks. So
you were doing that before COVID, though. Anyway,
right, I was preparing.
Another story that I have just on like this awareness of food, and I think the gap that I want to bridge here is like, we as coaches, we can sit here and talk about time under tension and periodization models and all this like nitty gritty training stuff, and like that matters and it's important and it's certainly fun to talk about, but it's not the biggest needle mover for the most people.
No,
I had this client and he drank a bunch of pop every week. I know that
you guys say pop in Canada.
Okay, I was just gonna say, what do you guys call it?
Soda.
Pop, soda, whatever.
So it depends on where you are. Middle North America is usually pop. Anybody that has a brain that lives on the coastal part of the America usually says soda, because that's what it is. Pop sounds like what happened to me last weekend.
Fair enough. So he was drinking a bunch of soda. It was like 5 or 6 a day.
Jesus.
And get the food log, and it's like, hey, I eat pretty healthy. I'm like, well,
not diet soda.
I would beg to differ. No, not diet soda. It's like I would beg to differ. And I said, all right, forget, still eat Harvey's every day and Wendy's and whatever. Like, do that. Like, we got to cut down on the soda. Like, I think we said like one every day or something like that, like from 5 a day, like one a day. Like, let's just go there.
Okay.
He comes back. He was like super motivated. He's like, I didn't have any. I only had 2 per week. And I'm like, wow, amazing. In 2 weeks, he lost like 15, 16 pounds, something like that.
And he didn't die.
And he didn't die.
That's
But then
crazy.
here's the crazy part though. He sends me back his food log every single day. On the thing, I see iced tea. And I'm like, man, well, like you said, you weren't drinking it. And so he had like an iced tea and then like a Coca-Cola, whatever. And he said, oh, I didn't know that iced tea was a soft drink. I didn't know that counted. All right. Well,
just as many calories. Yeah.
Fair enough. Like, I guess I didn't specify that. It wasn't something that crossed my mind. But the point is, like, that's where we're at with some people, right?
Yeah,
I think that's a little bit more of an extreme example. But like telling this guy about mechanical tension in the gym for hypertrophy purposes, like that doesn't mean anything to him, and it has no bearing on what he's doing.
Definitely the diet more now than anything. And and I think what people actually do really start to focus on their diet, eat cleaner food, eat appropriate volumes of food or amounts of calories, they'll have more energy to get into the gym and do these things. There's no doubt that the food that people are eating is ruining their brain. I told my students this 10 years ago that Alzheimer's was type 3 diabetes. And now it's becoming more common finally that people are like, they're calling it type 3 diabetes. We know that we're not producing as much serotonin when we eat terrible. So it's like people are running themselves into the ground with these high intensity interval workouts, the group training, like Aram had pointed out, all this stuff, but they're still eating that stuff. And then they're just fighting this uphill battle. Yeah. Or they can just create some awareness around their food.
It's also very difficult to continuously make good decisions for yourself when you're feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Like if you're in a bad place, if you're stressed out, if your day is long, of course it's called comfort food for a reason. Like if you're going to try to derive some level of comfort from it. But like, I mean, I always use myself as an example because I'm just as flawed as everybody else is. I just had 25 years of experience of doing it. I have a fucking disaster on 2 legs. But the thing that saves me every day is that when
just the way you are.
I appreciate that. I can't wait to hug you in June. But like when I eat well, and there's a difference. Like last week, I was like off the rails. Like every night I would hit my calories, and then afterwards I would smoke. I'd get the munchies, and I would order $20, $30 worth of GoPuff, which is like Grubhub, but it's only snacks.
He's been banned from Grubhub.
We don't have Grubhub either, but
you don't?
Just Uber Eats and Skip the Dishes.
Same thing.
Skip the Dishes. Look at that clever little name.
That's awesome.
You guys don't have Skip the Dishes? That's that only
Never
Canadian?
heard of it.
All right,
but just think about the name GoPuff. Like it's clearly designed for people high on the couch.
100%. I'm surprised they don't have that actually.
So like I'm sitting there smoking and I'm like wondering like, what would be great to snack on right now? So I was overeating by like 1,000 calories a night for 5 straight days. And then I finally got to a place of like mentally where I just was so sick of it that when I had my coaching call with my coach, he's like, dude, you're a fucking ambassador for your brand. You're asking your clients to do all these things. And then you're sitting there on the couch, smoking yourself retarded and eating a bunch of snacks. He's like, you need to start reeling it in and making sure that you're living and breathing what you're saying. And then it wasn't that I didn't know that already. It's just, I needed to hear it. So that little bit of a shift from, I was already doing well and I was just adding all this bullshit to my life to just taking the bullshit out. The amount of mental clarity, the amount of easier, good decisions I can make on a nightly basis. And then you don't have any of these cravings because when you're not eating that shit, you don't crave that shit anymore. Like I'm just as pleased sitting down to my 96.4 ground beef with spinach and rice with a little bit of sauce on it and eating that and then having a piece of sourdough toast with some honey on it as like a dessert versus me just gorging myself on a bunch of bullshit because you don't have that craving anymore. And that's what people don't want to believe. They're like, well, I have all these cravings because you keep feeding the craving. Yeah. And if you keep feeding the craving, what you're telling your brain and your stomach is that I want more of that shit.
To use you as an example, Aram, have you deleted the apps yet?
Is
this a problem too? Like people that keep complaining, I just keep getting DoorDash all the time. Delete the freaking app.
So for me, it was no different than when I did have a drug problem back in my 20s, and I didn't want to like I went to a place where I was like, okay, if I have a cocaine issue because I like it so much, let me just stop doing it altogether and stop hanging around with the people that do it. So I did, and for 2 or 3 years, I didn't touch it. But then I got to a place where I'm like, it's unrealistic for me to not. I like that environment. I like being in a party scene. I like being in nightlife. I'm going to be surrounded by it at some point. So instead of being afraid of it and not being able to be exposed to it without having control, let me learn a way to moderate. And that's kind of what happened. I just started to learn how to. So you talked about it. It was like what moderators or abstainers, right?
Abstainers, yeah.
Like sometimes you have to start as an abstainer until you
Yes.
become a moderator. So that's
Yes.
exactly what I did. So with snacks and all this bullshit and all these food
Did you
apps,
delete the apps?
no, because I can exhibit control. What I did do, and
Dan,
fuck you for
Daniel,
laughing
what you
at
don't
me.
know is every week for about 12 episodes, maybe 25 in a row,
More
and
than-
we always
more than
record
that.
on Friday, he would give us his Thursday night Grubhub order, which was usually close to $100. It's like a control.
That's serious.
But I took out the problem. So
Yeah.
I know that I get the munchies when I smoke. So what did I do? Very easily. I just don't smoke until I go right to like unless I
Yeah.
and I, when I'm going to bed, like shutting all the lights off, I'll maybe take a hit of the joint after I've eaten some gummies, and then I'll go to bed. So I'm just not going to sit there.
So-
But the gummies don't give me munchies, so I'm not going to. I know that that's not a trigger for me. But I think the problem is
I like
that
how you
people,
just threw it in there. It was cute.
but people like don't want to do that level of self-awareness or that level of work to understand their own habits. So they never understand what their triggers are, as opposed to like, okay, I know that I do this and it cascades into these other things. So
Yeah.
when it comes to like that level of self-awareness and that conversation that you have to have with yourself, is it something that needs to be kind of like slapped in your face? Is it something that I think that you see people being capable of and just don't wanting to own up to? Like, where is this disconnect?
I think it's different with every person, but at some point it's going to feel like a slap in the face no matter what, in my experience. And that can be, it can come in different forms. It's me saying to a buddy like, hey, stop being a fucking idiot and get your shit together. That's one approach. And the other approach is like, hey, maybe we should like, stop drinking coffee so late at night because of like this, that, and the other thing. And that's like, oh wow, oh my God, I didn't know how important this was. And so the effect is kind of the same, but the approach is a little bit different. I'm with you guys on sometimes you got to just totally cut stuff out and like totally abstain from things. Another thing that I've seen kind of swinging in the industry, like following along this path, is the people who went super hard about like, oh, carbs are the enemy, no carbs ever, and that, and then swung back the other way where it's like, hey, don't be such an idiot, like carbs are healthy, like they're functional and they taste great and whatever. And it's like, okay, yes, but some people eat so many carbs and are so dependent on like the breads and just like those starchy things that are just not doing anything for them that sometimes for a period of time it actually is very beneficial from a coaching standpoint. Cut all of that crap out, maybe keep the fruits in, but like cut all of the starchy carbs out. Understand that you can live without them, and then let's work on like reintroducing those in an intelligent way instead of having 9 pieces of Wonder Bread for breakfast. Like these are
Keyword being a period of time, though. That's what
exactly.
I think. So
And then strategically introducing them as well.
So talk about that, because that's important, because people think that like when we tell them these things, they're like, this is going to be forever. This is how it's going to be until the last breath you take. Like talk about the idea of being able to do these things for periods of time.
Yeah, so the way that I always highlight it, that it's going to be only for a period of time. So usually 2 weeks, sometimes 3 weeks, again, depending on the person, their life situation and whatnot. But it's like, this is going to be hard, and I tell them that straight up. This is going to be difficult. It's going to suck. You might get a little of that keto flu if we're going down this route of cutting out carbs for a bit. This is going to suck. It's going to be hard, but these are the things that you can expect from having this. You're going to see like a big scale drop, and that's not all body fat, but like, we'll take it as a motivational piece anyways, because that's always nice to see. So we'll roll with the wins when they come. These are the negative things that you're going to see. You might be tired. Your sleep might be affected. You might be a little bit irritable and whatever other things that might come up. But it's only going to be for a short time. You can do anything for 2 weeks. I promise you're going to feel better at that. And I promise you that carbs are coming back into the equation after this. So it's outlining that, yes, I understand it's going to be difficult. I'm going to be here to support you through it. You're going to be okay. You're not going to die. And there's going to be a lot of benefits through it. And so like, let's just try it, because again, what you've been doing obviously hasn't been working. We've agreed on the fact that this might be a strategy that would work for you. Like I would never force someone to do something. I was like, hey, I'm doing this, and if you don't do it, well then, too bad. Like I'm firing you as a client. Like that's not how it works. It would be a conversation where it's like, based on everything that we've talked about, this is what I think would be the next best course of action for you. Do you agree? If yes, like let's proceed. If not, then, let's work on maybe a way to go about this. So again, just like highlighting what I think the benefits of it will be for them, letting them know that yes, it will be difficult, but you're a human, you're resilient, you're going to be okay. And I'm going to be here for you through it.
Is there anything that you think is, I don't know, the most deceiving in the food industry right now, or something that a lot of people just have no awareness of or no information about? I know it seems like a broad question, where you just constantly see these people getting caught up in this certain trap in today's food world, in today's food industry.
I think maybe this is not something I've thought about before, so maybe there's a better answer, but like off the top of my head, it's some of these like marketed as healthy foods where it's called like a keto this or a health that or a meat free this, or like, it's just marketed in such a way that's healthy, but it's like loaded with calories and like a bunch of shit that no one needs. And my thing with that is like they don't taste good anyway. So I don't know what problem they're solving. It's like having a cookie that doesn't taste good. I don't know how that satisfies your craving for a cookie. Yeah, exactly.
But if I eat that cookie, I'm going to burn fat because it's keto.
Right. And so I think these are some of the things that are like, maybe causing more problems than they're solving.
And then what do you think about the bread? Because this is something I talk about with all my clients, even with my students. I'm a high school teacher as well, with my students, about the bread products where they're taking out the fiber. What is your stance on that? Like Mission Carb Balance tortillas used to say 120 calories. Now they say 70, exact same nutrition label.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit strange. I don't know why we're continuing. Like, we've modified food so much from its like more natural state, and we can go down this like little bit of an esoteric, like hippie kind of route here, but we've already modified the food so much and it's created a problem. So I don't know that continuing to like modify it even more is the solution to the problem.
And they're flat out lying.
Right. And if you just look at Europe, like so many people have gone to Europe on vacation. Like, this is anecdotal evidence, obviously, but people go on vacation to Europe and they're like, oh, I ate tons of pasta and I ate ice cream and I bread every single day, and I came back and I lost weight. It's like, well, how did that happen? It's not because like there's something magic about it. There's something to be said about that you move more when you're on vacation and you're walking more because Europe is more conducive to that and all that kind of stuff. But is it just the walking? Is it the food? Is more processing of things and trying to convince us that things are healthy that are not actually healthy? Is that beneficial? I'm not sold on the fact that it is, or the notion that it is. But so I think that's probably one of the bigger things that's affecting us negatively right now.
Well, I think food intolerances are very real. And I think the reality is we have a lot of people that are in the evidence-based space right now that are starting to tell us like seed oils aren't bad and gluten's not bad and dairy is not bad. I just don't buy it. I'm sorry. Because when I start having people reduce or eliminate some of these items, even something as benign as like broccoli and cauliflower and Brussels sprouts, their digestive system gets better when they're, and then I again, this is anecdotal evidence that I was just discussing with somebody today. You don't need as much food when the food that you're eating is actually all being fully digested, absorbed, and used as energy. So this, and then this is very popular in like the bodybuilding space. Like, what did bodybuilders back in the 80s and 90s do? They would fucking dirty bulk, which dirty bulking just meant you would eat as much shit as you possibly could. Now, granted, they were on grams and grams of androgens and steroids and everything else. So they had the ability to be able to at least stay relatively big and muscular and lean to be able to absorb all those calories. But still, digestively, they were impacted, which impacted their performance, which impacted their sleep, which impacted their recovery. So if people are still living under this guise that like food intolerances are being developed very recently because the quality of our food supply has gotten worse, and if you don't believe it, just remove some of these items like breads, like pastas, something as simple.
Not one case of type 2 diabetes in an adolescent in 1980. Not one.
Really?
It used to be called adult onset diabetes. Up until, I don't know, mid-late 80s, maybe the 90s, they changed it to type 2 diabetes because you don't want to tell a 12-year-old they have adult onset diabetes. And plus, it became not adult onset diabetes. Kids were getting it as adolescents, but not one in 1980. And that's when they demonized fat. And that's when the carb, fucking nutrition rocket shot up. And then by the 90s, it was fat's bad, Snackwells and the Olestra, the fake fat. And all
God, that destroyed me.
Yeah, but to think that the quality of the food and the way things are engineered, the way things are being sold is not drastically negatively affecting us is insane. and then it's affecting our country more than other countries. I mean, in Mexico, it's illegal to have cartoon characters on the cereal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we're the best country in the world.
The fact that we still wear that label with as much pride as we do is actually scary to me, because there's countries that are essentially third world countries that are running laps around us at this point and laughing at the way that we're just dying by the drove. And they're like, COVID, what? We didn't even have it. We were good. We had a population that was so resilient to it that we couldn't even show you a statistic of it. And it's sad, because even like a place like Canada that was so locked down during that time, like there's a lot of stuff that you guys do really, really well. And there's a lot of stuff that I think that
Play
you
hockey,
guys do.
all right.
Yes, that's true.
You can't see his face when Rob said that. He made that face like,
I mean, listen, you federally legalized weed. That to me is a massive step in the right direction, because weed, in my opinion, as opposed to alcohol, is already a better step.
But it's not as opposed to alcohol. Like they're just both here now. So it's not like we didn't trade one for the other.
Yeah.
But like I'm with you on that. There are some things that we do. Like our food environment is a little bit different than in the US. Like anytime I go to the US, one of my favorite things to do, not favorite things, one thing that I find some minor enjoyment in is walking through the grocery store and seeing how many flavors of chips and snacks and stuff you guys have. It is fucking mind blowing.
it's insane.
Really?
There's an insane amount. Like you have an entire aisle of just chips. Like
why that doesn't exist in Canada?
Well, there's one aisle, but it's all of the snacks, and there's like 3 flavors of Doritos, not like 19 flavors of Doritos. And
That's
so
wild.
our food is not perfect, but it's a little bit, the system here is a little bit better. The other thing that's different that I've noticed between Canada and the US is that fast food here is not necessarily that cheap. Like I think it's Burger King at most places. In the US, it's like 20 nuggets for $2 or something like that. Like
I
that.
don't know what the prices are nowadays. I feel like I'm hearing the price. I remember like a meal would be $5. What I'm hearing now, that's like $10+ for a meal.
Yeah, so it's going up for us as well, and maybe I'm disconnected from that from you guys, but like I think that it is a little bit
at some
cheaper.
point,
like
ours was a lot cheap.
Yeah, at some point it was. Like now you're not going to go to McDonald's and get like a meal for under $15 really here, unless you're just getting like the value menu. But you're not going to get a Big Mac and fries and a drink for under $15. So it's like it's not that expensive, but it wouldn't be to get like a burrito bowl of chicken and rice and some vegetables when it might be $17. So we're just not that much of a difference here. But again, just comes down to the choices. Like this, circles back to the whole thing. It's like the environment is what the environment is, and we can sit here and complain about the processing of foods and all that stuff. And I love to complain about that stuff because it's fun and like shit on the system. But it doesn't help anyone because we don't have the magic button. So it's like, well, what are you gonna do? Are you just gonna like fall victim to it? Like you said, Jim, if there's just cocaine all around you, should you just do cocaine and crack and whatever else is available to you?
Yeah.
So, some might say yes, but like
sounds like
I was like, yeah, I hear the question. You're like, okay, never mind.
but you got to make decisions for yourself. And again, if you don't like what's happening, then you got to change something or don't complain about what's happening.
Yeah, and I think that for us complaining about it, we're complaining about it to bring awareness to people, because I don't think that people realize. Like I have a client who's American, just moved to Australia, works for the government, and she's like, all my favorite snacks I can't get here. Like they don't have the regular Cheetos, like the tighter Cheetos. They just have like the puff ones, and she's like, they're just not as good. So it's interesting to see her perspective. Like, these are my favorite snacks and I can't find them. She's trying to get some like mailed in, and she's really good, like really good shape, like eats really, really well. So she modifies her snacks really well, but it's just a free for all here. So when we're complaining about it, it's to let people know how bad it is. But now what do you have when you get that client? I know at the beginning it's different. It's like, hey, let's just write down what you eat, or I don't care about the counting the calories. Let's just cut down the soda. Let's cut down the coffee. Let's say this person starts to get into a groove. I feel like a lot of our listeners are in a good groove with stuff, but maybe there are a couple little things. Do you have general guidelines on average for somebody with, how they incorporate those foods into their day or their week?
I think I don't really have a general guideline, but if I had to kind of come up with one, it would be to include them in a conscious way. So like know that you're going to have it before you have it. Don't just end up on the couch on Wednesday night with a bag of chips in your hand that you
And
didn't
how can they
previously
do
think
that?
about.
Please answer the way I hope you do. How
Just
can people not fall into the trap of eating the chips on a Wednesday night in their house?
a couple of things. One, don't have the chips in your house
Boom.
on Wednesday night. And two is just like be an adult, be like a little bit responsible for the things that are in your life. Like the chips didn't magically make it into your hands. Like you have to make an effort of some sort, whether it's going to the pantry or driving to the store, whatever. Like you have to take responsibility for your life. And this like absolving of personal responsibility is mind blowing to me.
Yeah.
But you know,
You
just
keep
the
buying
simplest thing
bag
is don't have it in your house.
Yeah, you keep buying the bag of chips thinking this is gonna last all week. I swear, this time I'm gonna put it in individual bags. And then how many
Nobody does
times do you
that.
have to do that to then start to realize, okay, I can't control myself. I need to abstain from this for a period of time. If
Yeah,
you
and
want the chips that bad, drive down the street and get a
and
small single serving bag of chips.
and that'll piss off all of like the people now that are advocating for like the positive food relationship. What I don't even know what the movements are fucking called anymore now because they're just losing. There's so many. There's like my grandpapa said, the only movement is a bowel movement. But all these stupid movements that are going on now with this like positivity of your body image and eating and all this other stuff. And like if you count your calories, you're disordered. And if you weigh your food, you're disordered. And if you portion out your snacks, you're disordered.
That's the stuff that pisses me off too. It's like for you, it's disordered. Maybe not for me.
Or how about the fact that like when you get labeled with one of these disorders, it's such a convenient thing to wear as a cloak for your bad behavior. Like,
Now you have no control. You're a victim.
and I had said this on a podcast, and I'm sure it was on a mostly women's podcast, and I'm sure it pissed people off. But think about it in this context, folks. There's no difference in the compulsion factor between somebody who does drugs, between somebody who abuses food as a coping mechanism, and between a guy who prefers the company of young children. Just let that sink in for a second. It's the same type of mental disorder. If you want to fuck kids, eat too many Cheetos, or do too much blow, it's the same compulsion. We allow people to go to rehab for drugs. We have mental health clinics for people who have eating disorders, but we jail people who fuck children, right? So why can you imagine if that same scenario held true with the person that raped? Like, well, no, he has a compulsion, so he gets to get away with it because it's a disorder. So he gets to wear that disorder as a label, and he gets to not have to go to prison for his problems. And that's fucking bullshit. Every parent on the planet would lose their mind if that happened to their children, their child, and the sisters was like, nope, he has a compulsion problem. He's got a disorder. It's a mental health issue now, and we can't put him in jail for it. Why the fuck does he have to go to prison and you get to stand in front of your cupboard at night and then bitch to a therapist about it? Why?
So they should go to jail?
Why? No. Why? But
Well,
why can't
I'd say to answer that? Listen, why? Because somebody else was a victim of the assault,
right? And that's the problem. But you're victimizing yourself, and I get
potato
it. Like,
chips
I understand
aren't emotional,
but I'll argue that there are victims to people that sit in front of their cupboard and overeat at night because their children are watching them do it.
Well, and how about the fact that that's just allowed for you to allow your child to become morbidly obese at 10 years old, and that's not child abuse. I mean, it is wild to me.
It's extremely sad because the kids don't have any choice. Like
Zero
kids
choice.
are just do what their parents give them, and if you keep giving him chips, like he's gonna keep eating chips. He doesn't know.
Why wouldn't he?
Right?
I mean,
yeah. Why would you? Yeah.
Which even brings up for the people listening who have kids, and we're talking about not having these things in the house. I think a big problem is parents have this stuff in the house for the kid.
Yeah.
As the adult, you are struggling with food compulsion issues, but you have the stuff in the house for the kid. Do you think you're setting this kid up to have the same problems later on? So
of course you are.
Keep thinking about that. Why do I keep having this stuff in for the kid? And then I end up eating it all. Now the kid, what do you think he's going to do when he sees that mom or dad eats all the chips? He's going to fucking house those chips before the parents get a chance to.
Yeah,
and now you're creating that same cycle. So this idea that kids are supposed to eat junk food is just setting up parents to ruin themselves, to ruin the kids. Stuff's got to stop coming to the fucking
I mean,
house.
I hate the idea of the children's menu at most restaurants because the children's menu is just like mac and cheese, chicken fingers,
Hot
fries.
dog.
Maybe they're smaller portions, but like I've seen dog food menus at restaurants that were healthier than kids menus. Like there's a bunch of restaurants here in San Diego where they have a kids menu and a dog menu, and the dog menu is something I would actually feed the kid because it's like a piece of salmon, vegetables, and a sweet potato, which my fucking dogs love. But then why are you feeding the kids the fried bullshit?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make any sense to me. And this is going on a systemic level at schools. This is happening at the home level. And then what do you think is going to happen when mom is eating all this garbage at night at 9 o'clock at night because she has a binge eating disorder? And really where the binge eating disorder comes from is just a lack of planning because she's not satiated or feeling full from her normal food because she's eating shit all day or eating nothing all day and then binging at night. So it's not a disorder. It's really just a poor planning issue and an environmental problem that she's not able to change because she doesn't want to change it or she doesn't have enough awareness to change it. And then that kid's going to grow up with that same problem because they're seeing this pattern of undereat, overeat, get on the scale, feel miserable about it, do something extreme, undereat, overeat, and then continue the cycle. How do we fucking break this cycle?
I think
Solve
it just
our problems right now, Daniel.
Yeah,
Do
I think it really just like it has to start with each individual. There's no like collective way that we can change this because again, we can't change the system. So it starts with mom taking some responsibility for herself and breaking that cycle, saying that, little Billy doesn't need to eat chips because humans don't, like, no one has a chip deficiency or a snack deficiency. Like, this is not a thing that you need just because they're a child. They need junk food snacks.
But
in the
I'm
house,
craving
therefore
it,
you buy
Daniel. But I'm craving it.
Well, too bad. Like, and I think the other part of this, another thing that I want to say was that some people hear these kind of messages of like, you must take responsibility, and I know it's hard, but like it sucks, and you got to get the chips out of your house, and like that's so mean. And I'm like, you're not being very nice. And my response to that is like, I know that I'm not being very nice. I'm not a nice guy, but I am a good guy. Like these are good messages. These are good things to hear. And being nice has almost gotten us into a place that we don't like. You be nice because the kid is crying, so give him some chips, give him some ice cream. Okay, how many times are you going to do that before that kid is now obese? And now you've really fucked them up for the rest of their life. Not all the health stuff, physical health stuff, but not to mention the bullying that comes with that. Like all of the other things that come with that, that's going to really harm that child in their life. And it's so sad. So the answer is like someone has to take the responsibility to break the cycle. And I don't know how to, you can't force that on anyone because it has to come from within. So to some degree, the people within the industry who, the infighting that happens of like, oh, I think your diet plan is stupid, and I think your diet plan is stupid, and I think your exercise thing is dumb, and my programming is way better. And it's like, yeah, we can have those discussions, but really, like, we're fighting against, Netflix and other things. We're fighting against other bigger issues. Like the more that we can kind of come together and just, collectively promote, at least do any exercise. Like we can sit here and have a discussion about how dumb the group classes are, but really I'd rather someone do that than what they're currently doing, which is nothing. Right.
Right. Yeah. And I think, but the bigger, let me just bring this up. And I know I don't want to have to go off on this tangent because it's going to be a while, but most people that we come across, or most people that are consuming our content, aren't complete novices.
Right.
They have some idea and understanding of nutrition quality. They understand that they should be working out somehow. So these aren't people that are like completely couch to fitness, right? So that's a much tougher demographic to sell our ideology to because they're already kind of doing some of the right things. They just haven't quite paired the nutrition to the fitness. They may not have actually really dialed in their consistency yet. They're maybe kind of just starting on their road. What type of advice would you lend to at least kind of the, not just past the entry level types of people? So you're already kind of understanding that you shouldn't be drinking soda, you shouldn't be eating fast food, you should be moving your body with some level of strength training, but they're like, well, what the fuck? It's not working.
So I think it's, something that I've said before is really just write down everything that you're doing. Like write out on a calendar all the activities, like hour by hour, what it is that you did during that day, and every single thing that you ate or drank. Because sometimes we convince ourselves that we're being healthier or more productive than we are. Like even just in work, you think that you're productive for 8 hours a day. Like almost nobody in an office job is actually productive for 8 hours a day, like maybe 3 hours if you're lucky, right? So it's like, if you actually do like a little bit of a life audit of yourself, of what you're doing from an activity and just calendar basis and what you're eating, then that's going to usually reveal some pretty simple places that you can make some changes. And then from there, if you're really like, you got everything dialed in, you're there's no obvious things that you're doing. You forgot that you were having 3 cans of soda per day and just didn't occur to you. Then that's when I think you start to just reach out to people, like reach out to coaches who can look at these things better and give you some more pointed advice. Because I think beyond those really obvious things, it just becomes too individualized. There may be something very specific that person is doing with their training, that to say, like, we can sit here and say, oh, you probably don't train hard enough. And that is wildly subjective. Someone who's going to the group classes, well, their, heart rate thing on the TV says like they're first place every class. So, what does that mean? I'm not training hard enough. It's like, well, then now we have to have an individual conversation about why that training is not conducive to their goals. But that's a way better problem to have than like, hey, I haven't been to the gym in 7 years, right?
Yeah.
So again, it's just like take a kind of a life audit and then like look for the obvious things. And people know what the obvious things are. When you write it all out and you have to write down on a piece of paper, 6th bag of chips this week, you know that that's not right. And so when you make it very obvious to yourself, it's very difficult to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm doing everything right, when you know damn well that you're not.
Yeah. I don't know if you saw the post I posted recently where it was like, when like it was a reel. I do a pretty good job of not beating my kid. I do a pretty good job of paying my taxes.
Yeah.
Whatever somebody said, I do a pretty good job of eating. Like, no, you don't.
Yeah.
Just that phrase, like you already kind of acknowledge it.
Yeah.
So it's
a great quote on that one. I heard someone, I think so. Yeah, I can't remember where it was, but guys, like, anyone who says they eat pretty well is pretty full of shit.
Yeah.
I mean, even me, like, look at what I did last week. I eat pretty well until 7 o'clock at night when I overeat by 1,000 calories. So I ate
and that's like the 80-20 rule. Like people are like, well, 80% of my day was great. Yeah, well, 20% was half your calories.
Yeah.
Like 20% was thousands, but 80%, yeah, you were really good. So 80-20 doesn't mean the percentage of your day. It means 20% of your calories,
right?
Not 20% of your day, because you could friggin' double your calories in 20% of your day.
Easily. And that's why, but people are also living in this world where they don't want to deny the reality of calories. Because Huberman talks about like grounding yourself on grass with like sunlight on your nutsack, and like that's the way to like biohack your life.
My Apple Watch said I burned 800 calories walking in the grass for 10 minutes.
It did?
Yeah.
It must be true.
I had a ton of electron transfer.
Mm-hmm.
So it's probably true then. So that means that you're probably in an 800 calorie deficit today. And that's the thing, is like we're overwhelmed by all these devices, and if we don't take our 15,000 steps because our watch didn't tell us, that means that the day was negated or we did something wrong. So I think like you said, all of this very simple, obvious stuff bleeds into the consistency of the action over and over and over again, as imperfect as it's going to be. But then it just takes time. And then that's the other thing, is like, if you want to rush the process, let's say you do want those fast results, you better be accepting of the fact that it's going to suck for that duration. Yeah. You better be accepting to be 100% of your compliance. You better not leave any stone unturned. You better not be going out to restaurants and ordering multiple meals out per week. You better be saying no to a shit ton of events. If you want results fast, I'm not going to be the one to tell you not to get them. But are you prepared to do that level of work? Most people probably aren't.
I think I literally recorded a podcast episode on that yesterday, where I was like, okay, here's like, if you got 6 weeks to get shredded before, like Canada Day or 4th of July, like you can do it. It's not impossible, but like, here's what you would have to do. And it's going to fucking suck. It's going to be horrible. You're going to hate your life for 6 weeks, but you can do it. So if you want to do it, then by all means, like, go for it. Right. Like, the way I framed it was kind of like, you're going to try and do this anyways. Might as well do it right. So
right.
Yeah.
Here's like, who am I going to, I'm not going to stop you. Like, here's some information that might help you,
Yeah.
But, it's just, again, this clouding of the truth of what we're doing. And even to go back to some of the Huberman stuff, and like, not necessarily Huberman, but some of these things that don't seem to make that much of a difference, like walking outside in the grass and grounding yourself and whatever. And like, I'm actually a big proponent of that. I think it's a good idea. I think it's a good thing for people to do. Is it the biggest needle mover? No, but for some people, it might be the thing that like clicks in their head. And that's the only like positive action that they take. And so we've talked about like this cascading of positive events. And so if for whatever reason, the way that someone says the message about like walking outside with your feet on the grass or sunning your balls or whatever crazy thing you want to do, if that's the thing that gets you going, then start there. Like
That'd be
think
awesome.
about all the things that it could be, and then just pick the one that sounds like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can add that to my routine, and start there, and then everything else will follow.
I want to hear the story of the 600-pound guy who started sunbathing his taint, and that was the catalyst. Like, you know, that'd be awesome. It's like, yeah, I was just really shit. Then I just started sunbathing my taint. I just kind of started to realize like life's bigger than McDonald's. And it all started with tanning the taint.
I think that's the sequel to The Whale.
Yeah. Well, but I think that with all of this, people need to start taking it more seriously. If we were having the exact same conversation about your habits in your personal life, how your habits are overflowing to your kids, and it had to do with drugs or alcohol, people would have a real serious tone to it. Yeah. But what's killing more people, what's costing more money, and what's costing the government more money, which is us more money, is the food and the fat. That is what is a bigger problem than all the drugs and the alcohol combined. Absolutely. And we treat it like it's YOLO.
It's no big deal. Yeah, live a little, right? Like live a little. Why aren't we living a little? Why aren't you having that 17 drinks on the weekend? Why can't you have that dessert whenever you feel like it? And it's because it's going to add up.
And live a little never refers to living life.
No.
Like, no, it's like, let's go for a hike, live a little. It's like, we should do this. But when it's food or alcohol, live a little.
You said it before, Jim, and this may be like hard to hear for some people, but I'm pretty much convinced that like type 2 diabetes shouldn't exist.
I agree.
Absolutely.
There are a very small percentage of people who would be like more genetically predisposed to it than others. And like, of course, you can't count for all outliers, but like the vast majority of cases of type 2 diabetes shouldn't exist. And if you just think about what are the downstream effects of that positively, like financially on the entire country and the entire world, and just the health of everyone involved and the family members of these people and all the pain and everything that comes with that, like that would change the world. And it's something that absolutely doesn't really need to exist. I mean, the fact that we're even having this conversation and that the three of us have jobs is a little bit absurd if you really think about it. Like we're not coaching like Olympic level athletes to lift or increase their 100-meter sprint time by 0.1 seconds. Like that's strength and conditioning and athletic performance. But like we're talking about not buying Doritos every time you go to the grocery store. And like that's a real conversation that needs to be had because of the way the world has transformed. But the fact that we're even here doing this is like a little bit ridiculous when you really think about it. And hopefully we work ourselves out of a job one day.
Hopefully.
But
we won't.
But we won't.
I don't think we will. Yeah.
No, I'll leave the audience with this last little tidbit. So I work with an ER doctor in Ohio. And this is out of his mouth, and we should probably have him on our podcast at some point. But he says that 90 to 95% of the people that show up in his ER are coming there with chronic illness due to lifestyle problems.
Yeah.
90 to 95% of the people that he has to save their life on a nightly basis for work are self-inflicted problems. Yep. And if that alone doesn't fucking motivate you to change something, and he also goes a little bit further to say there's people that he has conversations with to be able to get them out of the woods because he knows that there's a point at which you're beyond repair. Like if you're an 85-year-old woman and you're 200 pounds overweight and you've been living like this forever, like he's not going to sit there and harp on the fact that you've had your 4th heart attack or your 3rd stroke. He's going to kind of like make you comfortable. He's going to give you the medication you need, send you on your way, and probably expect you back in a couple of weeks. But if you're a 25 or a 35 or a 48-year-old woman and it ends up on his table, he's actually a very responsible physician. He's going to spend some time discussing lifestyle factors with you. And thank fucking God he's one of the people that does. But that's an astonishing number to me, that 90 to 95% of people that end up on his table that he's literally trying to fight tooth and nail to save their life is coming from something that they've done to themselves over time.
It's terrifying. It's terrifying.
How disgusting of a culture are we that our food and lifestyle has led to an abundance of type 2 diabetes and in kids. There's then research to help these people, and they come up with drugs like semaglutide, Ozempic, and then just fucking regular people get it.
Yeah.
just because they have a few pounds to lose before the summer. And now people who need it can't even get, like, that's how twisted we are as a culture.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
This is actually a topic that like I got into a lot of arguments with people through COVID. And because I was talking about like, hey, make sure you're still going outside for walks, make sure you're still exercising, make sure you're still eating. And people are like, how dare you like talk about other health conditions? Like COVID is so important. And I'm like, first of all, I didn't say it wasn't a big deal. But second, like as a personal trainer, like I'm seeing people who are killing themselves. They've gained 40 pounds in the last year. Their mental health is in the absolute shithole, and like they're destroying themselves. Like, yeah, COVID is an issue, but like so is everything else. And so like, we can't just forget about, like, you can't control whether or not you get COVID. Stay home for the rest of your life. Like do whatever you want, but you're still going to have all these other issues that you're well within your control. So like control what you can and like let the rest just do whatever, like let the chips fall as they may,
And anybody paying attention early in COVID knew that weight was an issue and that health was an issue. Like it wasn't even, I remember when I was first hearing things like, oh, in China, most of the people who ended up hospitalized or died were smokers. Like smoking was an issue. I'm like, it's going to be obese people here. Like this is going to be a problem. But people were just blind to that.
Yeah.
Because
I think just a lot more is under our control than we like believe is, and we can all do a lot better to just control. And we're talking about health, but I think this extrapolates into every other aspect of your life, right? Like we had a conversation prior to recording about like some of the stupid ways that people make money. It's like you can make shit happen. Just like take some responsibility for your life, and like things are going to work out.
Yeah. I like it, man. I feel like we talk too much, you and me, Aram.
No, I appreciate it. Dan did his job today. I appreciate you coming on, man. And if you haven't listened to our podcast yet, Dan, we have a very signature thing that we do as a sign off. Jim?
We do. We have one question. If you haven't listened to it, then you won't know. Have you listened to the full episode or anything? We have one final. You have?
Yeah.
Do you know what the final question is?
Oh, go ahead.
You could say the final question. All right, here's the final question for our viewers to hear your response. You ruined it. Bye.